Stacey Lane Wilson here for Inside Horror. We are at the red carpet premiere in Hollywood of Black Rock, which stars Katie Aselton, and her directorial debut. Alongside her are Kate Bosworth and Lake Bell. So we are doing a special episode on females directing horror genre films.
Nice. You're in the right place.
Indeed. Now, what do you think that a woman brings to a story like this?
Well, I think you're already dealing with something new when you're dealing with a woman directing a horror film. And I will say that this is also a horror thriller, so this skirts on both genres. And you know, part of the reason why I'm standing here right now and why I wanted to do this movie is because a lady's take on it. Katie Aselton had this approach that I felt made it very refreshing, and Mark Duplass wrote this very sort of sensitive, emotional script that is following very real characters in very extraordinary situation. There's nothing supernatural about it. There's nothing that you couldn't imagine. It's all things that could really happen, and it's not hilarity that ensues.
It is not. I've seen the film. So can you describe to our viewers, though, like who you play in the movie?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. When my character, and I always think of her sort of fused with the other three. So they are sort of a trifecta. These three women are friends, and it's a very serious bond, and they're at odds in the beginning of the movie, and then that sort of those trite things, even if they're grave in sort of real time, when survival gets involved in the concept of survival, all of those things are shed, all those silly things, which are tough. If it's you slept with my husband, if there's that's big. But when you're trying to live or die, they become moot. And that in itself becomes sort of a character in the film.
Well, I understand that you directed a film too.
I did.
Is it horror?
It is not a horror film. If you didn't like it, it might be a horror.
Oh.
So it really just depends where you're standing, but it's a comedy.
Okay, when does that come out? What's it called?
It's called In a World, and it comes out August 9th.
Great, congratulations.
Yes, so buy some popcorn and see that.
We are doing a special episode on female directors in the
awesome.
genre.
Yeah,
so
there's not a lot of them, are there?
There aren't. Why do you suppose that is?
I don't know. Honestly, I've been asked that question a lot. I don't know.
What made you decide to take on something like this that's so brutal?
Yeah, I mean, it is brutal, but I got to tell a story that I really saw a beautiful arc in, and it felt like a story that I could tell. It was a genre I'd never explored. I'd never been asked to explore it as an actor, something I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to get really physical in a role and hurt someone.
Yeah, well, you certainly do hurt a few people in this.
A couple.
And you get hurt too.
I do.
Was your husband Mark like, "Ooh, I'm going to write this scene to have"?
I was like, "Dude, you do know what you have just."
Yeah.
He's like, "I do." And I was like, "That's messed up. That's really messed up."
Now, elements of this film kind of reminded me of I Spit on Your Grave.
There's definitely a nod to that, a very conscious nod.
Now, both of those films, the original and the remake, were directed by men. So can you talk a little bit about what you think a woman's touch brings to a story like this?
Honestly, what I really wanted to hold on to was the relationships and the humanity. And I mean, I can't speak to all women filmmakers, but those are the kind of movies that I like to make and the stories that I like to tell. So I wanted to really hold on to that as an element to the movie, and I didn't want to lose track of that just to respect the genre. I wanted to make sure that we held on to that through the whole scope of the movie.
Well, this is a huge accomplishment as an actor and a director. So, I mean, what's next? Where do you go from
here? That's a good question. I don't know. I'm deciding. I have a couple ideas, but I am pretty sure there will be no fake blood in it.
All right.
Because I did not like the way it tasted.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, we'll stay tuned.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We are wrapping it up here on the red carpet. We got a chance to talk to the director of the film as well as a couple of the actors who were on hand. Kate Bosworth unfortunately lost her voice, so she didn't give any interviews today, but her performance will speak for itself.